I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta Independence, broadcasting live Monday through Saturday at 5 p.m.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. Well, we got a big day on Saturday. We're going to be hopefully debuting the new set. Everything seems to be ready. I just finished the wiring, so we'll see how it goes.
True. But before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help us out. We try to read all or most of your comments after each segment as we go. But if you really want your comment read and really want to help us out as well, you can always send a super chat and we pause the whole show for those. And also we have memberships. Thank you to everybody that has become a member and continues to be.
Yeah, and thank you for everybody that watched Nat today on WDW Pro. She does a guest appearance every other Thursday, I think. It's fighting it back against, I would say, against woke entertainment somewhat.
Yeah, so it's talking all about wokeism in Hollywood and entertainment and the gaming industry, which I know not much about, but at least I can try to hold my own as I did today, talking about, I don't even remember what the game was that we talked about, but that one.
And what I was going to say, big news coming out of Alberta with Danielle Smith and the Chiefs. Danielle Smith, reluctance to kind of, I wouldn't even say reluctance to pick a side because she has picked a side, but that side seems to have the knives out for her. The other side has the knives out for her. She's in no man's land right now, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But let's start saying hi to Glenn. At least Glenn says, I'm back. Hope all is well. Nat and Guy, yes, and same to you. And says, and all. The old man is moved and ready for a good conversation. So I'm glad your move went well and hope you are doing well as well. That wherever you moved to is better. Nicer.
Well, hell, I was moving my ass on the way back from the grocery store today because Nat says, let's go to the grocery store now. I said, no, we'll just go after the show.
Hour ago.
And we just it started hailing on the way home, then a monsoon, little rain.
Soaked.
I got absolutely soaked.
Because we only had one teeny tiny umbrella that I tried to use, but I still got soaked as well. Doesn't matter. Glenn Gunn says, the tribes, paid up chiefs, you mean? Yes, I did change it. The self-made tribes that love their people, don't say a word. Sorry, I have seen both. But that's the thing. Even if we want to say, it's not actually the members, it's the chiefs. Well, yes, but the chiefs are the ones that are representing the members at the end of the day. And they have to start considering that if they want to continue going down the ways in which they have.
Yeah, absolutely. The Chiefs really want to maintain the monopoly they have on money coming in from Ottawa, I think. And it's just, there's an independence movement going on within the First Nations as well, not just all of Alberta with the citizens here.
Yes, and hold on. For some reason, once again, my chats aren't showing up. Let me try to bring it up again. Happens every time. Let me try and reload it and see if it works now. If not, I'll read them from my phone, as I always have to do. Reload. Nope, they're not showing up. So I'll just read them. And now for some reason, I can't take down Glenn's message now. Hold on. I'm going to have to send a random blank message just so it shows up and so I can take the other one down. But hold on. Steven Jensen says, except yesterday, lol. And hello Don, says, hi NNG and Glenn and everyone. I'm moving now to, where are you moving now?
Oh, wow.
Is it Alberta? Because I think he said so. And Satias Maximus says, hey guys, hello, and thank you for being here as well.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody that did tune in today. We appreciate it. Yes. Let's get right into... okay.
Oh, there we go. Satias Maximus says, turn it off and back on again. That's what I did, and now it is working. So thank you, Satias, for sending that other message, because I couldn't even see mine to take it down. And Don Robinson says, hi, Nat and Guy. Hello, and thank you for being here, too. Okay, now, hold on. Lal Norman says, Tommy the Commie is mad that the independence movement took him to elections to Alberta. Hope Tommy gets fined.
Yeah, he needs to get fined. But, I mean, the amount of money they're playing with on that side, it's just going to come in. They're going to pay it, no problem. It doesn't matter how many fines he gets. I suspect even with a fine, they're going to keep playing dirty because they have that much money to burn.
Mm-hmm. And Austin Westwood, hello, says, hi all. Anglin Gunn says, okay, moving sucks. Yes. And man, believe us, we know because we moved from Vancouver to Mexico City. We had to wait for our shipment to come in a boat. We had to pay and save up for all of it. And then we had to move within Mexico as well. So but right before we left, 6 months before we left, a pipe burst in our apartment and apparently had been leaking for a very long time. We were covered in mold for years and never really realized it. And then we had to move in the middle of December. It was snowing, I remember.
But we did get lucky. There was an old woman that was looking to sell her apartment and she just wanted to sign a 6-month lease, which is hard to find. We found that right before we were going to leave. And it was a phenomenal view. And because we only wanted 6 months, it was still really expensive, but man, it was the nicest place we lived in when we were in Vancouver, I would say.
Yeah, because we were right in front of we were in Gastown, right in front of where the ships, what's it called?
Where the cruise ships come in.
Yeah, there. The cruise ship station?
The convention center.
The convention center, thank you. Don says, staying in Alberta. Okay, so you're in Alberta. Who was it that was moving to Alberta? I'll try to remember. And Glenn says, me too.
Okay, let's get right into Stay Free Alberta if we can, and the big news of the day. I think I doubled up the articles for the big news.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And let's start with Mario Zelaya saying, quote, treaty chiefs in Alberta just asked the RCMP to criminally investigate Premier Danielle Smith for treason, her crime calling a referendum. Perfectly legal and democratic act under provincial
Pause it for a minute. I would like her to be investigated for not calling a referendum. She's really taking it from both sides here. She would have been better off just picking a side or literally playing it down the middle and calling the referendum question. The path that she's on now, she's burning her political career in real time, I believe.
On both ends, apparently.
At least within Alberta. She's still extremely popular outside of the rest of Alberta. So if they ever do manage to have a vote of inconfidence on Pierre Poilievre, I think she's going to be one of the top candidates to actually replace him, even though she is very unpopular right now, I would say, in Alberta, especially with the independence movement.
This is a perfectly legal and democratic act under provincial jurisdiction. And let's see Smith's response.
I think it's disgraceful that any government that wants to be taken seriously would level charges that serious against another government. Look, I've had my differences with the federal government, but I have never used language like that. I would ask the treaty chiefs to check themselves because we have a very collaborative relationship between our government and our ministers. I want that to continue. But this kind of overwrought language has no place in a democracy. When they were pursuing a new relationship with Ottawa, I cheered them along. We are pursuing a new relationship with Ottawa that respects our jurisdiction. And I would ask that they be respectful of that. But they need to, that language has no place in this democratic discussion. I think it's disgraceful that...
Yeah, it's very interesting because a lot of, I would say, the Conservatives, now the First Nations, and now the Independents are all salami slicing potential voters off of her. So if we decide that the best solution is to have a leadership review on her after October 19th, which everybody knows, that's what I think. I think we need to take over the UCP, have a leadership review, and replace Danielle Smith. I know there was some pushback on that, but I would like to say this because I was thinking about it even more. They're talking about a 2.5 to 3 year timeline for a binding referendum. If that's the case and you think we're just going to go along to get along and wait for that, there's mechanisms out of our control at that point. The U.S. election comes into play. Right now, we have a president that's willing to recognize a free and independent Alberta from a non-binding referendum, I believe. I believe a non-binding referendum is enough to declare unilateral independence. We don't want to be in a situation where a Gavin Newsom or a Democrat gets in there, and even if we get a binding referendum, there's not a country that's going to recognize us at that point.
But I would also say to the Chiefs, and especially because the timeline has been extended farther and farther out, and she is doing the non-binding question because of the court case from them, from the Chiefs and from the First Nations, but it's actually just the Chiefs because the First Nations want 46% independence because they also want to gain independence from this exact same thing being used by the Chiefs that are being used by the federal government. And it's really easy to use them because they've co-opted the entire Canadian populace to essentially just I can't say that word but like to essentially just kneel and bow down and always be scared of speaking up against it. So they're kind of caught in a catch-22, but she's helping you idiots.
What I would say is it's probably not the Chiefs themselves. The Chiefs are always working on somebody else's behalf and putting money into their pockets, whether it's the NDP trying to sit themselves up to potentially try to take power within Alberta, or it's the Liberal federal government telling the Chiefs to do something as well. But we need to use this to our advantage. Even though voters were probably being salami sliced off of her and looking for other people to vote for, if we can get a candidate that appeals to other conservatives outside of Alberta independence, and we can put them up for candidacy after a leadership review on Danielle Smith, I think that would be fantastic. Keith Wilson would be my vote. I think he's the only one that we'll be able to thread the needle with.
But next, Chris Scott says, quote, 120 hours collecting signatures for a cause only for it to be invalidated. It is not a defeat. The fight continues, and unity is key to avoid being set back for a decade. We must treat this as an existential threat because it is. It literally is and has to do with the existence of Alberta as an independent nation.
Oh, I thought I had 2 stories about that. You just erased them both?
I think, well, because you told me to erase it.
Oh, no, erase the first one, but leave the second one. That's fine. We'll go right into the story.
Should I try to find the other one?
No.
Okay.
She doesn't want to, but so Karen and I estimated that we spent about 120 hours each on the side of the road. So about 120 hours, 40 days, 4 or 5 hours a day collecting signatures. We had set ourselves a goal of 1,000 each, and we came just short, 700 signatures each. But and to be honest, the ruling that occurred and the fact that those signatures are sitting in Edmonton and are not being validated was upsetting. It was upsetting to me. This is my first public speaking since April 29th. And it was upsetting. It was upsetting, but I'm not discouraged, right? You think this will succeed. And I always said, do you honestly think I would have spent 120 hours on the side of this road if I didn't think I'd succeed? Or more importantly, if I didn't think this was important, this was existential, like our livelihood in this province is threatened. So Karen and I decided to do something about it, as you folks are doing, as Corey, as Chris, as Carrie, as everybody else is doing, right? So that's just my message today. It was a temporary setback, but I'm not discouraged. And the fight goes on, and I completely agree with Corey and others on this one. We have to be united now. We have to be a bit smarter about what we've been doing, and we have to continue to treat this as an existential threat. We have to get a really good showing at this referendum. Otherwise, we could set ourselves back for a decade, and I don't have it in me to spend, another 120 hours on the side of the road. I'd rather do this instead. So anyways, thanks for coming out.
And Marty's looking absolutely fantastic. He's been working out ever since he was gathering those signatures. That being said, I think we not only need to be smart, we need to be a lot more hard-nosed. They have no problem just trying to throw out all those signatures. They think we're going to go to a non-binding referendum and wait 2 to 3 years for a binding referendum. You're out of your freaking mind. Other countries that have declared independence did it off the back of a non-binding referendum and getting 2 to 3 other countries to recognize them. We already have another country ready to recognize us. We don't want to get just 51% in this non-binding referendum. We want to make a statement with 60% or more, I believe, especially if we're going to try to use that to declare unilateral independence at that point. And the only way we can do that after that referendum is to take over the UCP and then have a leadership review on Danielle Smith and replace her with somebody like a Keith Wilson or somebody that will really appeal to a broad mass of people, so we can really box out the NDP from rising up at that point, because we will be taking a risk.
But also, collecting all those signatures was not for naught. It did show that there was a will, that there was enough people that did want to have that question asked on both sides, but for independence specifically. And it also mobilized 7,000 and count people and volunteers that continue to be engaged citizens that we can really use right now as we head into, again, a potential, maybe even having to get to the point where we have a unilateral declaration of
Without
independence.
those signatures, without those hard-nosed people, without all the content creators online as well, all that stuff put pressure on Danielle Smith. And although she's a nationalist and she didn't want to call the vote, she didn't want to burn her political career down to the ground instantly. Now she seems to be doing it slowly now, but that's her choice.
She's going slow at it.
There's still time to come back around to independence, Danielle. We're here for you.
True, or at least to democracy, more to democracy. Yeah. But thank you so much, Stephen Jensen, for the $5 super chat saying, could Albertans hold their own referendum across the province, bypassing the government interference entirely with a third-party verification of results?
Well, I think we already have a non-binding referendum. That's enough to actually declare a unilateral independence at that point. But we would have to control the UCP and the leader of the UCP at that point. We actually don't need a binding referendum. This is a misnomer, because as soon as we declare unilateral independence, but we do want a large majority on that non-binding referendum, because we want the consent of most people within Alberta if we're going to make that declaration. But also, we're no longer playing with inside Canada's rules. Once we make that declaration, we're now playing on the international stage with international rules, which says a non-binding referendum is enough as long as we have 2 to 3 other countries ready to recognize us.
But also, with this upcoming non-binding referendum that Danielle Smith had to do, we might also get more and more people and encourage more and more people to sign for independence in a way, because we can always go with it's just to send a message to Ottawa so we can get a better deal. But then if we have that big showing for independence, then it gives us way better numbers if we needed to resort to the measure of bypassing the whole Canadian system of independence and just go with the way other countries, new countries, have done it.
Well, we also need to make it well known that we're going to, off the back of a non-binding referendum, we're going to attempt to take over the UCP, have a leadership review, and get somebody in there that will declare unilateral independence. What does that do? That puts a lot of pressure on the federal government saying, oh shit, they're going to try to declare unilateral independence off a non-binding referendum. We might as well give them a binding referendum
So they could lose.
in quick fashion. So at least they have some control over the entire operation.
True.
So like this strategy, I believe, is the best strategy. If we decide to wait 2 to 3 years for a binding referendum, which Danielle Smith and Mark Carney are trying to lay out, we're going to be like conservatives trying to vote harder and wait 3 years while hundreds of thousands of conservatives leave to the United States and Mexico every year, losing the critical mass of individuals they need for a federal election. We don't want to do that in Alberta. We want to make sure after this non-binding referendum, whatever we're going to do, we don't want it to take longer than 6 to 12 months at the absolute longest.
Yeah, it's 3 more years for Polyev, 3 more years for Polyev. Oh, let's just wait and hope that when he gets in, he can make some sort of change, even though everything has made it essentially impossible to make any real change for the next few generations. But let's just hope and pray that it works.
Well, and again, we don't want to put another chess piece on the board, which would be the American elections. If we agree to wait to after 2028 and this court case is settled, who knows if Gavin Newsom's going to be there or some other Democrat. That would absolutely stop everything, even if we did have a binding referendum at that point.
True. And Glengan says, nice one, you guys. Nice to hear. And so she is laughing. Glengan also says, substance lays reserves paid by for the feds. And unfortunately, that's how the chiefs want people, because it is easier to control people. Very similar to what the federal government does to the rest of the citizenry.
Well, and again, I'm not going to complain about this at all. Like, if they want to go after her and the federal government wants to go after her and kind of send a message, perfect, because that might push her a little bit to the side of independence. She was once there. She went over to the federalist side, but if they keep treating her like that, who knows? Keep the door open just in case. I mean, I don't like her. I don't trust her. I'm going to oust her, or hopefully Alberta's going to oust her as soon as we can get a leadership review after October 19th. But leave the door open if she wants to come back before that.
Glenn also says, Danielle wants the substances out. And also says, well said, Marty. Glenn also says, problem with Keith, mainstream media will not give him the airtime.
They are giving him the airtime,
more,
actually,
yeah.
and they've been inviting him back on a regular basis. He has been making the absolute rounds. He's been a lot more quiet because he's primarily doing mainstream media and working on these white papers with experts from different classes, whether it's the business class or the military class and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And Glenn also says, we just did that about the getting a Marty just said. We just did that with signatures in the winter uphill both ways. He said, I thought Danielle would be tougher. I really wanted her to be like Klein.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Yeah. Hold on. And now Southwest Maximus says, interesting to see how the media portrays the third party violation, but they won't because it's their side, not the independent side.
Okay, and let's remember, this is a citizens-led movement, and we wanted Danielle to be tougher on this one, and we didn't even need her to pick her side, but we wanted a binding referendum. She doesn't have the backbone for this. We need to show her exactly what it means to have balls and backbone here, and we need to go in there and try to take over the UCP after October 19th, period. And a lot of people say, oh, it's too big of a risk. It's too big of a risk not to.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I thought you were going to keep going. Saltius also says, Ontario politicians have used the same language talking about Danielle Smith, even Jamil Giovanni, when he went to the States. All the TDS liberals couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
And I think that was initially what got them pushed over the edge to start really going hard at her. But for some reason, they don't realize she's literally just helping that side. I think Carney does know and maybe moved some things and tapped her on the shoulder on several ways, saying, hey, it's your time to stand up for Canada and say that you want an independent Alberta within a united Canada.
This is just absolutely ridiculous at this point. They've tapped every conservative on the shoulder and said, defend Canada against Alberta independence. They should be using Alberta independence for leverage for all of Western Canada and to get power. Carney has a majority government. He's going to brush any suggestions the conservatives have to the side right now. The weapon they would have to use would be these independence movements, but instead they're standing with Carney in a uniparty, whether it's Pierre Poilievre or Danielle Smith at this point, and they're not helping their case come the next national election in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. And now Robinson says, Tajana Zekic reported Edmonton Council had a virtual meeting describing how Edmonton will become a 15-minute city. Their pilot of 300 neighborhoods will be put into the 15 districts. Call your city councilor.
Well, not if Alberta Independence has anything to say about it. And this is how we would reverse all these crazy policies. Danielle Smith likes to say woke in Alberta is dead. It's not dead. We show the stories every single day. She does one little thing and she claims she solved the entire problem. No, she solved the top of the iceberg. Everything underneath still lies there. The institutions are absolutely infested. The way we fix everything from economics to culture to woke policies is through Alberta independence.
To preserving what Alberta is and what it means.
Yeah.
Still. Satias Maximus says, there is no better deal, just submission to Ottawa if nothing changes. And we can continue to wait forever and ever until hopefully one day maybe we get to have another referendum, which essentially won't happen because if it's not convenient for the federal government, it's not going to happen for Alberta.
Well, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but it's obvious in this court case where they got the thing hung up in right now, it's not going to be resolved in a year. A normal court case will. They're going to make that thing last until after the next American election because that could completely derail Alberta independence based on who wins that American election. If it's not J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or a conservative, they're most likely not going to recognize Alberta. And if they don't recognize it, it's going to be very hard to get another country to recognize it.
And exactly. And as Altius Maximus says here, you only get independence with Trump. That's a 2-year window.
Exactly.
And they want to extend that forever.
It's already been extended in their minds. In our minds, we have to show Danielle Smith what it means to have backbone, and that's taking over the UCP and getting rid of her. I don't care how good people think she is. She's not supporting independence, and she's not supporting any real permanent solutions. She's going more and more into federalization, especially with this last MOU she signed. It was absolutely ridiculous.
And retroactive as well.
And retroactive for previous oil pipelines and oil that's coming out of the ground, we're now paying taxes on.
But speaking of, now let's go to Alberta politics and continue talking about all this.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Let's start with Rebel News saying, quote, Albertans backing independence speak out ahead of momentous referendum. I headed to Trochu, Alberta last week for a Let's Talk Alberta town hall to find out how Premier Smith's announcement on the referendum question a few weeks ago was affecting the appetite for independence and if interest has waned in the weeks since. I know, hold on, I'm trying to go down. There we go.
I don't think I really want to describe myself as a separatist. I would really rather describe myself as a Canadian who hates bullies. And that's what I was talking about earlier here, that the legislation that we challenged was federal legislation. Everybody is treated under the Canadian Wheat Board Act. They're all encompassed under it, but those of us on the prairies, the 3 prairie regions of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba are treated differently. Yeah, and that's some of what is brewing here right now. People are becoming increasingly aware that they are treated unfairly.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Tamara Leach here with Rebel News, and we are in Trochu, Alberta this evening for a Let's Talk Alberta Town Hall. Now, the Town Hall tonight is hosted by Chris Scott of the Whistle Stop Cafe, featuring guest speakers Corey Morgan, Ben Crane, and our very own Sheila Gunn Reid will be stopping in to make an appearance here this evening. Now, if you're following the referendum saga here on Alberta independence in Alberta, you will know that our Premier Danielle Smith did make an announcement a few weeks ago saying that the separation question will be on the October 19th referendum here in Alberta. The question will be framed as, should Alberta remain a province in Canada, or should the government of Alberta begin the legal process of holding a binding referendum on a pathway, seeking a pathway to independence? So this will be our first event post-announcement, so we're really curious to find out if the appetite for independence has changed, how Premier Smith's announcement has affected, and if it has affected the independence movement as a whole.
People, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? From a person who's an Alberta independence-minded individual, they might ask me, Chris, what happens if we can't get an independent Alberta? Or on the other hand, if somebody wants to stay, they say, Chris, what happens if we leave Canada, we lose all these things? And the answer is the same for both. The answer is whatever happens is supposed to happen. I refer to it as, this is a big P plan, capital P plan by capital G God. And who am I to argue with these things?
Is not revering the memory of those people
who did all that fighting.
Okay, and we can leave it there. And absolutely fantastic little event they have. I like that we're continuing this over and over and over, but we need to have a little bit more hard nose of an attitude here. And the strategy that I'm proposing after October 19th about taking over the UCP and having a leadership review on Danielle Smith and then declaring unilateral independence would appeal to a lot more young people. A non-binding referendum where we have to wait 2 years for another referendum, it's going to be hard to appeal to a much younger generation. They want things now, but they at least want a strategy now. Even if we're willing to wait, it is in our interest to go forward with this secondary plan, even if it fails.
Because it feels like more of the same to them. Again, Ali Continental was telling us that his friends don't want to vote because they're all the politicians are the same, all the parties are the same, and nothing in the end ends up changing. And especially for them that just went through, their entire childhood under the Liberals and with the Justin Trudeau government that was changing everything, legislation and all. And as we're seeing now, Bill C9, C32 and 22,
Yeah.
22 and 34 coming in hot into Canada. Well, now I think they're even less hopeful. And the only way and the only ways that have been working around the world, again, if we look at political movements in Spain, in Germany, in the UK, in the US, is through being a little bit more forceful and saying things a little bit more, how would I put it? Just out there, putting it out there.
It's a little bit older of a movement, and the movement, we obviously want to work within the bounds of the law. It's within the bounds of the law to suggest what I'm doing. It's edgy, and it's a lot more hard-nosed, and it gets a lot quicker result. And we need to be looking for a quicker result because they're looking to lengthen this thing out. They have a ton of advantages the longer they can lengthen it out, especially when we get to the 2-year plus mark. They have huge advantages at that point. We got to narrow this thing down to 12 months after October 19th, period.
And that is always what I mean when I say stop being so Canadian. And I think that is what a lot of, especially younger people, are looking for, but they don't see it anywhere. But thank you so much to Steven Jensen for the $5 super chat, saying breaking, Fringe just reporting that the Forever Canada Thomas Lukasik group is under investigation for breaking election finance laws on his YouTube. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic that's happening. But what's really going to come from it? A fine. And we know how much money they have and how many big dollar backers they have. And where's that money coming from? It's coming from Albertan citizens themselves in remittance payments to the federal government. And then the federal government is giving this to different NGOs, including Forever Canada through the back door. They have unlimited funds at this point. And we can't just keep playing these games with them. We need to start thinking outside of the box and coming hard.
And again, would that impact his question as well is what I'm wondering, because that might actually help both Smith and federal government if they don't want to have to put that question up, because that was the one that they had technically approved already. So if they can find him and get that question removed, well, then it becomes even harder to do anything if the non-binding referendum actually goes through. And then they do really have to wait for all the courts to finish their processing, which could take up to 2 years when, surprise, surprise, Trump isn't there.
Yeah, what happens if they somehow take this binding referendum or this non-binding referendum question off somehow with some legal magic trick they do? The strategy that I'm suggesting after October 19th would still be in play there. And that's why we need to be going after all routes that are possible here. We need to be coming out hard for the non-binding referendum, trying to take over the UCP, oust Danielle Smith after October 19th, as well as continuing on the path to a binding referendum if we can't take over the UCP and oust Danielle Smith.
Exactly. But now, sorry, I'm choking. Oh, no. But now, let's go. Why is it just me?
You can keep continuing.
I can keep continuing. Thank you. I'll read Glenn Gunn said, good points, Altius. And, oh, God, I lost where I was. But speaking on the Steven Jensen super chat, again, could this be a mechanism where they're trying to get that question removed and invalidated because it is not convenient for them to have such an easy access that now has been approved? Once again, let's remember that before Danielle Smith did the press conference saying that she would do a non-binding referendum, all of us thought that was a question that was going to be put up. So would it be easier for them to just remove that by finding them?
That's 99% chance that's not going to happen. But if it did happen, we need to have that secondary strategy that was going to be in play anyway after October 19th. Okay, let's keep going here.
Yes, as I was saying, let's go to Mark Nixon says, quote, huge victory. This is a great day for all Canadians. The Conservatives were able to stop MAID for the sole condition of mental illness.
Okay, and I appreciate the small little victory, but it's a bunch of BS. This is like everything else that happens in Canada. They get one little concession on MAID. I know this MAID program in depth, and they're expanding it massively next year into all kinds of other areas. They're maybe restricting it here. They'll get the headline, and people won't realize how massively they're expanding it. That's number one. The big thing they're doing with MAID next year is they're going to change the way they gather the statistics for MAID. They're no longer going to count the majority of MAID deaths as MAID deaths. If you have a heart problem, they're going to classify it as a heart-related issue. They want to get the numbers down, but they still want to have just as many MAID patients in Canada next year.
Today is a good day. Today, the Special Joint Committee on Medical Assistance in Dying tabled its report recommending that the Government of Canada amend the Criminal Code to indefinitely exclude persons whose sole underlying condition is a mental illness from eligibility for medical assistance in dying. Conservatives support the committee's recommendation that this expansion be paused indefinitely. This will save thousands of lives. And this is the position that Conservatives have taken from the beginning. In 2020...
And again, this is what you get when you vote Conservatives. You're going to get one small step while the Liberals just take giant leaps forward. This is why we need...
In the background without you realizing.
This is why we need independence. This is why Alberta needs independence, because we can make permanent changes where we don't just make one small change to MAID while the Liberals are expanding it massively and changing the way they're even calculating how many MAID deaths there are next year.
2021, we voted against the Senate Amendment Bill C7 that created the sunset clause that set this dangerous expansion in motion. Since then, the Liberal government has been forced to delay the expansion twice through last-minute emergency legislation. The evidence is clear. It has always been. Moving forward with this expansion is reckless and dangerous. The two core problems remain unresolved. Clinicians cannot reliably determine when a mental illness is irremediable.
Okay, and you can leave it there, but leave this on the screen for a second. And we see one of my favorite politicians in the background there, Andrew Lawton. Absolutely love him. But again, this was similar to the press conference he had the other day saying we want zero tax on used cars. I want zero taxes on all citizens, period. And I have the statistics to back it up with other countries that have zero taxes on their citizens. And the situation that Alberta is sitting in, they should be able to have zero taxes on citizens, be able to build infrastructure off of natural resources, as well as medium to large businesses, not small businesses, because we want small owned family businesses not to have any taxes at that point. But again, this is the difference between Alberta independence and the National Conservative Party. One can make permanent change and permanent solutions, while the other one takes small steps, while the Liberals make giant leaps forward.
And this is why we don't see as many young people being engaged or caring about politics. And then we wonder, where are all these young people? Why aren't they supporting Alberta independence? Number one, because we're not giving them the points in a manner that they will understand them, or in a harsh a manner as they would like it to be done and to be said, because they want that massive change. And yes, they supported Poilievre, and even Ellie told us that himself and a lot of his friends really went for Poilievre, but now they have to wait for 3 years. So it becomes more of the same, and it becomes more and more frustrating as you sit there waiting, wasting your young years and saying, well, when will I ever get an opportunity? Is there ever going to be any change? No, I would rather just move to the US. And then you lose that critical mass of people that could vote for independence.
We need to appeal to young people, and the way to do that is to say Alberta independence is going to make real change in a timely manner. And their response is going to be, well, it's a non-binding referendum. Our response needs to be, after that non-binding referendum, we're planning to declare unilateral independence by taking over the UCB and ousting Danielle Smith. That sparks a fire to say, okay, maybe there can be change in a timely manner. If we just concede that we're not going to get a binding referendum for a couple of years, that's going to light a fire off under nobody's ass.
And you're going to lose a bunch of people that could have voted for independence, because what young person wants to sit around and wait to see if things will change, wait to see if Pierre Poilievre in 3 years gets in once he's wasted or she's wasted. Now they're 28, let's say, and now it's getting harder to find a partner, buy a house, get a car, get a good job, start a family. So wasting those years, especially when you're young, is very precious. And I know, because that's exactly how I felt staying in Canada for that long without really moving or doing anything about it until we decided to get our own independence before there was an Alberta independence
Young people
movement.
are just going to go to the bar and get a drink rather than than
Or
commit,
worse.
rather than commit to the hard work where it, to actually make change in Alberta if they think it is going
gonna
to
take too
take
long.
years. Let's keep going
That
here.
or worse, again, I mean, we see the crisis that continues to happen. Ryan Gertison says, quote, "This should have never been a thing in the first place. Strange men dressing up as caricatures of women and reading books to young children doesn't belong in the education system. The media wants people to be outraged by this. It's why they keep pushing this story. It's not news, it's an agenda."
And again, it's Pride Month. That's why these stories are popping up on a daily basis for us. And we're going to continue to show them because we want the opposite of this within Alberta. Now, in this particular case, I believe the event got canceled, but they're trying to spark outrage amongst national Canadians here to get it reinstated.
The pride flag flying outside Muchmore Elementary School, where a drag queen storytime event scheduled for this week was canceled.
So I think it would be powerful to reschedule the event and to take some time to engage with these parents to help them understand what the event is really all about.
A donkey. Yeehaw.
In an email to parents in early June, the school announced Adriana Expose, seen here reading to kids in Ottawa, would read a book chosen by their child's teacher that focuses on love and celebrating our differences with a goal of fostering a love of reading through acceptance in a unique and engaging way. Then last week, another email saying the event as part of Pride Month has raised questions about curricular alignments and wouldn't go ahead. The performer says it was because of parental pushback.
Drag Story Hour at its core is somebody dressed up in a cool costume reading a wholesome and powerful book that includes lessons that kids deserve to learn. Lessons about diverse families, about diverse communities.
So you have these individuals pushing back. On the other side, you have actual parents whose kids go to this school saying, we do not want this. And who's the government listening to here overall? Overall, if we look at Canada as a whole, they're listening to these individuals. These individuals don't have any kids in these schools.
Who is the media highlighting as well?
And an underlying message that kids deserve the freedom to grow into who they are.
But some parents who didn't want to appear on camera say the kids in kindergarten to grade 6 are too young. Others with grown kids of their own don't see the harm.
I just don't understand if they're afraid or because the best way to combat fear is knowledge and meeting people and to get to know people. So it seems like the wrong direction to go in when you're trying to inform people.
Okay, and that being said, she's saying it's the wrong direction to go to. We just highlighted on yesterday's episode teachers in the United States with similar ideologies and similar, I'd say, individuals, non-binary individuals, having kids kiss in class, male on male, female on female, and grading it as part of the curriculum. This is where this kind of stuff goes. We're not scared of it, but we've seen the examples of where this goes. It's a failed experiment. It's time to get rid of it.
And also, why does it have to be drag? Why does it have to be men dressed as women? Why can't it be veterans? Why can't it be older people? Yeah, get together older people and younger people and have them read to each other, maybe even. There's a bunch of different ways you can make this program work that doesn't include men who dress up as women because they have some sort of...
There's a simple solution here as well. Religion is not in schools on a governmental level, but there are Christian schools that are separate. If they want this crap taught in schools, have them be specialty paid schools where parents have to go seek them out and enroll their kids in that. Exactly. Now, I think that would be wrong to the child, but God, I don't. Yeah.
And again, it's to continue to inflict the ideology upon the younger people because they think that they can manipulate and control them easier. And again, it's easier if you get them young. That's the mentality. But funnily enough, again, especially Gen Z, but also Gen Alpha a little bit, are sick and tired of all of this because they've been hammered over the head with this 24/7 by the adults who are cringy and who they don't want to listen to anymore. So yes, we will be seeing a very big pushback, and I think especially in Canada, but that can't happen until a few years when these kids grow up a little bit more. But they know what they've been through. And again, when you were younger, you wanted to rebel against the authority figures. Currently, these are the authority figures.
Yeah, but now you have to remember, in order for there to be pushback, you have to have the right for free speech.
Yes.
Before that pushback comes, the federal government wants to clamp down on speech, especially for these younger individuals that are coming into their teens and their rebellious years. They want to make sure these kids are too scared to speak up at this point.
Exactly. And also they might not have the correct maybe outlet or person that could speak up for them to go against this, to kind of start this wave, because for the longest time, usually you feel when you're younger that you're the only one that's thinking this way. So we do need, and that's why they need to censor social media for under 16s, because that could help them see that everybody is sick and tired of this thing. But now let's go back to your comments. Lyle Norman says, yes, my uncle passed away during the jibby jab era, and AHS wrote on his death certificate that he died of COVID. My auntie said he passed from a heartache or a heart attack, I'm guessing. So I can see the government lying about everything.
Absolutely. And I think we have a story later today. Tamara Lynch was reporting on it, and it was Eva Chipiak that was actually fighting the case in Canadian court. There's only a few court cases that made it through the Canadian court system about the jibby jab. And this is one from that era. So hopefully there will be some pushback. But most of it, it's very hard to push back in Canada. The United States, on the other hand, there are some major landmark cases still making their way through the system.
Yeah. Rage Against Machine says, pure effing evil. These freaks need to stay away from our children.
Yeah, and that's the issue everybody has with this. When they weren't coming after the children, everybody was willing to go along to get along and leave them alone in their community. The second they started going after children, targeting children time and time again, that's the red line right there.
Which is why there's a whole contingent of LGB people, Gays Against Groomers, and a bunch of different organizations, the LGB Alliance, that are completely against this as well because of the stain that is giving upon their ex-community, because now they don't want to be part of that community, and against themselves as well. There's a lot of pushback against people that there shouldn't be pushback against because they're against this as well themselves. And Rage Against Machine says it's grooming, I'm going to have to say, but yeah, exactly. And Todd says, same type that do school pew-pews.
Yeah, and we see it more this month than any other month because this month is, and it's Pride Month.
But before we used to say it every month, so I guess at least it's good that they've kind of confined it to the season that is Pride.
Well,
but that's
they haven't combined it to the season. The thing is, Donald Trump cut off the funding through USAID, and that money was actually going globally. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars, and that's why they only have enough money now to really push it for a few weeks this month.
And just in Canada. Saltis Maximus says, cancel that crap, keep it safe. Yeah, and again, why do they always want to and fight so hard to be able to be so in such close contact with children?
Yeah.
Cindy Melnick says, McKinnon said in the HOC that they are, in the House of Commons, that they are now, hold on. McKinnon said in the House of Commons that they are now the law of rule and order. I couldn't believe what I heard. Sorry, I read it weird. Saltis Maximus says, pure government-sponsored evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on purpose, again, it's easier to control people. Philip Vespa says, Carney can't do a trade deal, but he can put together a DEI soccer team and cloud chase for the cameras on TSN. Alberta needs to leave like yesterday.
Yeah, and Alberta leaving is the only real solution here. Anything else? I mean, you can vote harder, and even if you get the Conservatives in, we see what they're doing with taxes. They want to take taxes off on used cars. We see what they're doing with the MAID program. They got one little victory here where the Liberal government spreads it out and starts gathering statistics in deceitful ways. What we want is permanent change and permanent solution. We want to build the foundation that Canada should have had from the beginning, but was rotten to the core because it was based in the Westminster system.
Speaking of all of this, let's go to Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And we have an actual Albertan personality today, and somebody the Alberta independence movement should be looking towards. We need to try to reach out to him. We're very small. I don't think he'll respond, but if we could get a song from Tom McDonald about Alberta independence. He's from Edmonton originally. He now lives in the States. He's very freedom-minded, so you have to figure he's very sympathetic to Alberta independence.
It's funny because I saw a comment saying, "Oh, like why would we want a rap song or a rapper supporting Alberta independence?"
As well.
Number one, he does country as well, but number two, because you want young people, because you want the people that he attracts.
Well, and he attracts that rebel mentality and that freedom mentality in the U.S. as well.
Exactly. Tom McDonald says, y'all gotta chill. See you Friday with a new video. And he did announce that he will start doing a bit less videos because he wants to do them better. This is what he said, better. But let's see what he says here.
With everything going on in the world, it feels so scary, and I spend a lot of days in fear.
So what the f*** happened to the liberals, dude? Like, does anybody else just kind of miss when they were just vegans that were offended by everything all the time? Like, is this the next phase? Robot bugs? We're gonna need another bathroom at Target. We're gonna need men, women, gender neutral, and Hellraiser. And you said you're living in fear. What are you afraid of? Walking into a room full of balloons and popping them with the 4-inch spikes on your head? You know what? I gotta say something, but I gotta do it in a way that you'll actually understand. Brand new music video drops this Friday at 9
Okay,
a.m.
you can leave it there. Absolutely fantastic. Because he's from Edmonton, because he's sympathetic to freedom causes, getting him to make a Albertan anthem would be absolutely fantastic. It wouldn't hurt in any way, shape, or form. No. And having his voice with Alberta independence would be absolutely fantastic as well.
Because again, he does get a lot more exposure in the U.S. and he has that's also a lot of other contacts.
And he doesn't have to worry about as much pushback because he already lives outside of the country in a country that is going to protect his freedom of speech.
True. So, Tom, we continue to ask. We might try to reach out again.
Okay, let's go into comments if we can.
Rage Against Machine says the only solution is separation. Anything else will not work. Republic of Alberta.
Absolutely.
And having that mentality too, because we're seeing it. We're seeing that with the Conservatives. Yes, they do a tiny little change, while the Liberals are going to completely just ram through that little change that they made for the mental illness regarding MAID, because they're changing the way that they're going to be documenting MAID deaths.
Well, as well, they're trying to tell us 2.5 to 3 years to a binding referendum. Are you out of your freaking mind? The game plan that I'm suggesting is 6 to 12 months after October 19th, number one. But if we agree to 2 to 3 years to a binding referendum, do you know what that means? That means they know they have us by the balls at that point, because another thing the federal government is saying is we have to have 7 provinces approve independence even after the vote. That's absolutely ridiculous. We need to declare unilateral independence after October 19th, and we need to make sure we have a path to do that.
And again, that little caveat that is within the Canadian legislation for any province to be able to separate was only, in my opinion, I'm not 100% sure, but was only to quell Quebec from leaving and to kind of give them that out and say, here, if you ever do want to leave us, we're great, Canada, why would you ever want to leave us? Then we have this mechanism. But in reality, number one, it would only fully work for Quebec. And number two, I don't think it was meant for any other province. It was just to quell Quebec. So they're going to continue to put all the impositions and restrictions on other provinces that do actually want to use it.
There's a legal pathway on the international stage to declare unilateral independence after October 19th. And we need to start looking towards that path rather than keep playing in the federal government sandbox there. But if that path fails, then we just keep marching forward towards that binding referendum that will take quite a long time, according to Danielle Smith and Mark Carney.
Rage Against Machine says, hell yeah, Tom McDonald gets a lot of exposure. Exactly.
And it's younger kids as well. It's going to be a rally cry for young conservative kids.
Yeah. Glenn Gunn says, make them pay like the Catholics did, then I have no issue with the schools. Yeah, if they want to go get that type of education, well, then make it private and let them choose to go there and pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just making a suggestion here because I still feel really bad for those kids that have parents that are going to feed them to the wolves like that.
But again, don't think that they're completely harmless and that they'll just go along with it, because this has become the measure and then it's coming from the authority figures. They will rebel against it. And we're already seeing a lot of rebellious teens actually turning conservative and Catholic and Orthodox as well.
Canada's the last country to be standing by this junk. And why is it? Look at Mark Carney's own children there. And it says all you need to know.
True.
He's not going to back down on this one.
Oh, no. Todd says, so refreshing to see real humans. I don't know if that was sarcastic or not, or if you mean us. Hope you mean us and not the Hellraiser there. Rage Against Machine says, good to see you, Todd. And Todd says, Tom's the man, simple and real. Tom McDonald, yeah.
And he's from Edmonton. Like, it's perfect.
Already there.
It's already there.
He already
for
left.
us.
He doesn't like Canada either because of how they treated him. Rage Against Machine says, we should reach out to Tom for sure. We need more people. And hopefully people with maybe a bit bigger platform could reach out to him, because sometimes
I'm going to reach out to him, period.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to him. But sometimes people don't see your messages. Yeah. Todd says, what's good music? It's simple and real. Yes. And Rage Against Machine says, where there's a will, there's a way. We will figure out new systems. Because Yvette said something. Let me go to the other ones. Satis Maximus says, really only heterosexuals and gays, meaning that want to separate. Bi is just recreational because you have no identity. You're just not picky. True. Satis Maximus says, outlaw ESG in businesses, outlaw DEI in the workplace. You can't do that in Canada. It's embedded within the legislation now and within their human rights tribunals.
But we can in a free and independent Alberta, and that's why I'm pushing so hard for this. Canada's unfixable at this point, even if you get the Conservatives in there. It's ingrained into the system. You have the judiciary standing behind them. You have the king standing behind that, and you have the system itself that's rotten to their core. That's why we need independence. That's why we need change, and that's why we need a new foundation.
Exactly. Yvette, hello Yvette, says, I'm terrified of Bill C-34, same. Says, I will not be identifying myself so I can watch YouTube, etc. Will there be another media source to get around if this passes? For us or UMBLE?
And I'm hoping something happens with Starlink and something potentially happens with a satellite phone coming out from Tesla or Starlink. Also, a lot of the new phones, such as the Apple phones and a lot of other phones, are directly linked to Starlink for different emergencies, or you lose service, you can actually activate it. That being now integrated into the phone might give other options in the future. I don't know, but you have to figure Elon Musk as well as Trump and JD Vance have to be working on something behind the scenes, because they are pushing back hard on a global level against all these Western governments coming after free speech. Trump is doing it through the Granite Act as well as other legislative means and lawsuits. Musk is working on different forms of Starlink and things like that. So hopefully there's going to be workarounds around a lot of this. But I will say we have some articles coming up about the censorship later in the show. And this first push with all these bills that are coming into Canada, as well as the UK, the EU, and other places, this is just the first pass. Then they're going to see how we get around it. And then they're just going to build on and on and on. They're going to put so many mechanisms on there. Freedom is going to be a thing of the past in a lot of these countries.
And again, here in Mexico, it's funny, and this is just like a maybe temporary solution, but because here they also want us to register all our cell phone lines, a lot of people that do know people in the US or can have a way to get an address in the US are getting eSIMs or virtual SIMs for their phones, so they don't have to register within Mexico. But that only works if you know someone in the US with an address.
Let's go into Alberta's Canada, and then we'll go back to the comments if we can.
Okay. Let me find my button.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
Let's start with Vincent Neil Ho saying 37 out of 38 Canadian universities dropped in global rankings. Wonder why? The Liberal answer, more DI policy and racial quotas in federal research funding. Canada's universities should be competing for excellence, not trying to satisfy identity targets designed by Liberals and their appointed bureaucrats, especially if around the world.
Well, and I was glad I watched this clip all the way to the end, because that's when the mask really starts to come off. In the beginning, it's back and forth, and I was like, what am I watching here? And then at the end, it was like, okay, everything reveals itself in due time.
This past year, 37 out of 38 Canadian universities dropped in global rankings. How do you continue justifying the lack of merit-based hiring when Canada's universities are facing a collapse in their reputation?
So, Madam Chair, the part of the question that I perhaps would answer is I would say one would have to look in a very nuanced fashion at what's moving in university rankings and do pretty in-depth analysis to figure out what it means. I would say that I feel quite confident to say Canada's reputation, our research universities, is outstanding. I mean, the country has, to its credit, multiple now international awards, significant recognition in areas that are well known, and I think I would leave to experts about how the rankings are composed or what it means to those that have more direct.
Okay, so the CRC, the research chairs targets 59.9% women or gender equity seeking groups, 22% racialized individuals, 7.5% persons with disabilities, and 4.9% Indigenous peoples. So those are the quotas that determine access to federal research allocations. So I'm just curious, who
determines those? But
No, it's not. You got to play the clip.
Just curious, who decided those percentages?
So again, I would not comment on the design and implementation of policies that are not in our care. I don't think that would be responsible. So I appreciate the question. Obviously, I'd have to leave that for.
But you talked when one of the other members asked you questions about how do we about DEI, you were able to answer it. So I find it kind of puzzling. So how does the NRC define for the purpose of hiring and funding? How does the NRC define a woman?
So I think this is a question when people apply, they will self-identify. And within the scope of the self-identification, obviously we accept that. I mean, there are many topics quite sensitive, like, matters like people that would self-identify as have a disability. This all relates to their lived experience and how they're deciding to fill out a questionnaire. And we accept that.
Time is up.
Absolutely ridiculous. And the ideology comes out. I love that conservative, actually, because he always uses that question because it's an I got you question, but he has been forced to pose it in ways not directly. He has to say, based upon the statistics, what is a woman? Because they've objected to him asking the question outright.
Exactly. They said when he was asking it to, what was it, a biology professor? Somebody that does research on biology. They said that he couldn't ask that question because it was Pride Month. But I will say Vincent Ho has been going pretty hard. And that's kind of what we need. We need more people just saying things outright without being scared of what will happen. And oh, let's maybe not say that because we might offend somebody. Yeah, we want to offend the people. We want to offend those that continue to do ridiculous things like this and continue to, again, hinder, in this case, universities. I mean, the universities have been completely captured, and it's all fully on purpose. And it was fully designed to be that way. That's the modus operandi of these people. They got in positions of power, and now they get to control what is a woman, who gets research funds, etc. And now we're falling in the rankings because in the US, they've tried at least to clean house in the bigger universities, even though the bigger universities did try to go against it.
Well, we're going to have a clip later, and it's US statistics, but I figure Canada has to be just as bad because they have even worse DEI policies and hiring policies, but 94% of women that got jobs last year, or 94% of new jobs were given to women only, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. But also crazy. Juno News says, quote, the reporter asks, why did you feel the need to bring up Canada's Chinese EV cap with the US president? And let's see what...
And he doesn't look so confident anymore. And the reason for this, and we'll show it in just a moment, is when he goes to the EU, he says one thing. When he's talking in Canada, he says one thing. When he's in the US, it's another thing. When he's in Mexico, it's another thing. And everybody's watching all this because of the internet. And now that it is a year, and he's not a politician. When he was a businessman, he could do this kind of crap. But when you're a politician, all these skeletons are going to come back to haunt you now.
Prime Minister, why did you feel the need to bring up Canada's Chinese electric vehicle cap with the U.S. president? And did you speak directly with him at the summit about the renewal of CUSMA?
I spoke to him about a range of things. He had asked, I can't remember he had asked me about it on China, and I explained to him what the deal. I mean, it was one of many interactions with him, and I was explaining the actual structure of the deal. You're familiar with it. I'm not surprised that the President of the United States doesn't follow every detail.
It's really raining. It's storming here in Mexico, so that's why the intro
doesn't
work. I have to wait for it to load.
Of every agreement that Canada has, and he likes the structure. Actually, we had a follow-up conversation about it as well.
Prime Minister, why did you feel the...
He's just giving when he talks to the Chinese, it's one thing. When it's Trump, it's another thing. When it's the EU, well, that's his home. And that's who he's really talking to, are the globalists in the EU. When it's Canadians, it's one thing if he's talking to people in Alberta, and then he's got another message if he's talking to national Canadians. He has no first principles. He has no true north. He will say whatever he wants to get his agenda passed. This is a man just based upon pure power. But the longer he's in office, the more his lies are contradicting themselves.
And that's basically all he said. And then he doesn't want to answer those questions because he doesn't want to answer why he's not having actual conversations that are not just him whispering in Trump's ear something while Trump looks annoyed and is like, why are you talking to me? But next, Rebel News says security concerns, international cricket tournament in Ontario bans all fans. International squads are competing in an empty venue as Cricket Canada refuses to answer questions about what prompted the apparent security threat. Should I just play it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is going on? An international cricket match is scheduled behind me, but no fans are allowed. David Menzies for Rebel News here in King City, Ontario. And this pitch behind me, folks, it is the venue for a three-nation cricket tournament involving Canada, the United States, and the Netherlands. But listen closely, it's crickets. Now, admittedly, the game is in a...
And he's going to talk about what happened here, but it's very interesting. And I take a lot of similarities to what's happening here with cricket and small league sports, as well as a lot of other things across Canada, and the devaluing of Canada amongst its own organizations because of the level of corruption. Same thing's going to happen with the Canadian passport eventually.
Rain delay, that's a game between the Netherlands and the U.S., but even if it were bright and sunny and dry right now, you wouldn't see a single fan in the stands. And why would that be? Slow ticket sales? Not a chance. If you can imagine, this tournament is closed to all spectators, and the reason given by the governing body, Cricket Canada, is security concerns. What what are those security concerns? Are the authorities worried about cricket hooligans showing up? Or does this actually involve somebody who might want to commit an act of terrorism? Indeed, you have to ask yourself what's going on in the cricket community in Canada these days. And by the way, when I talk about terrorism, that is not conjecture, that is not hype. Consider some of these things that have been going on in Canadian cricket of late. For starters, I wonder if the fan ban has anything to do with a targeted killing of Gurveek Ramjeet Singh Waring in Surrey, British Columbia recently. Waring allegedly had ties to cricket fixing. As well, earlier this month, a house owned by the president of Cricket Canada, Arvinder Khosa, was shot at for the second time in just a few weeks in what police are saying is an extortion-related shooting. As for Cricket Canada, the sport's governing body here in our Dominion, it's a mess. After a series of controversies and allegations of corruption and financial mismanagement, the International Cricket Council has actually suspended Cricket Canada's membership. In fact, it's
and you can leave it there. And that's the thing. They've lost their membership. And the thing about Cricket Canada and cricket in general, it's a fringe sport, but a lot of people don't know there's big money spent on cricket and in the betting market as well. So it's because it's a fringe sport, but because it's so big globally and the betting markets can be manipulated by just one or two people, it's very interesting that Canada lost its membership. And I'd expect a lot of other things across Canada to have similar outcomes.
Yes, but I mean, also, who are the main people who play cricket? And also, who are we not really checking when we're allowing them into the country or to carry around knives, et cetera, which we have seen what happens in the UK as well with certain factions. And right now, again, we invite people over to Canada and then they bring in and import all their conflicts that they have between them and between sects and groups, and then we just see them playing out on the streets in Canada as well. And again, a lot of gang involvement there too, they were mentioning.
Well, it's big money. Then that's the thing. It's sports betting. A lot of people don't understand. It's hundreds of millions of dollars invested in sports betting. Okay, let's go into the last story. And this is the one I was talking about before we go to Alberta and the world.
Yes. Peter St. Ong, I really like him, says women got 94% of all jobs last year, leaving just 1 in 17 for men. Diversity in action. And what have the results been?
1 out of 17 jobs going to a man. And this is in the States that the system isn't as corrupted through DEI as it is in Canada.
94% of jobs last year went to women who, fun fact, make up less than half the workforce. In case you wonder why women can't find a guy with a decent job, or why, according to a recent study, there are now 7 million stay-at-home boyfriends running through Shorty's stat. The statistics come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who report that of the 369,000 jobs created last year, just 21,000 went to men. That's 1/17 of jobs. Worse, this has been going on for years. Since 2016, women in the labor force have been unchanged, but 2 million men have dropped out. What's driving it is two things: explosive growth in female-dominated fields and state-sponsored discrimination. The female fields include healthcare, which is 80% female, leisure and hospitality, waitresses, cleaning ladies, personal services. Together, these accounted for 99% of payroll growth last year. And the other part, of course, is DEI. Men intentionally passed over in the name of diversity. Now, diversity is funny when 16 out of 17 jobs are already women. And it especially hits in government jobs, which still make up 1/5 of all jobs, including education. And corporate jobs, where CEOs try to impress left-wing executives at the Wall Street proxy advisors that functionally run corporate America. One study found that in the year after Black Lives Matter, white men got just 6% of corporate jobs, despite being a third of the workforce and, given education levels, likely more than half of qualified applicants. In fact, women now make up a majority of corporate jobs. So much for the Hollywood glass ceiling smashers. The real glass ceiling is men breaking 6%. This is all, of course, crushing men. Men make up 3/4 of alcohol deaths. They're 4 times more likely to be homeless, 4 times
Okay,
more
and you
likely
can
to
leave
commit
it there.
suicide.
And this is going on all over the world, and it's actually backed up by a lot of legislation, especially in South American countries like Brazil. If you disagree with a woman in a business meeting in Brazil, it's an arrestable offense. We've reported on this multiple times.
And again, in Canada, let's remember how many jobs are government jobs and how many people are working for the government and how much the government can manipulate that. If If we just saw, thanks to Vincent Ho, how they're manipulating universities and how they have fallen in the rankings, just imagine what's going on with jobs in Canada, where the majority of those jobs are government.
Yeah, but in private industry, this ideology is seeped in deep.
Yes,
yeah.
Still. And even though we are seeing changes in the US, and because of when Trump came in and getting rid of DEI and stopping the USAID funding, the people are still ingrained within the companies. We're still seeing it, for example, in he mentioned there Hollywood, but elsewhere as well. We're not seeing all the pride flags come out for many companies in the US, but the mechanisms and the policies, a lot of them are still there. People just don't notice them as much.
I'm not against 94% of the jobs going to either men or women if it was based upon merit, but it's not based upon merit at this point. The truth of the matter is, if it was based upon merit, you would probably see 75% or more of the jobs going to men. Why? Because any job that involves actual physical labor, let's say it's 50% mental and 50% physical, throughout the day, as you do more physical, your ability to think appropriately and make crucial decisions goes severely down. But if you're in better physical shape or you have better stamina, that your mental acuities don't go down quite as quickly. And that's why any job that has any kind of physicality, if it was based upon merit, is most likely going to go to a man.
But also with that 94% of women entering the workforce, how many of them are young women, and how many of them have been duped into thinking that they have to, but they would like to be mothers one day, for example, and they're hindering those opportunities because women are also being lied to about their fertility rates. For example, fertility starts plummeting down at 26. A lot of people don't know that, don't think that, and think they have until they're 40. Then they get to 40 after they had this big long career where they were just answering to a different kind of patriarchy anyways, but they want to go against the patriarchy, and they realize they can't have children, they can't start a family, and then you have a bunch of miserable older women now.
Well, this is why I keep saying, in a free and independent Alberta, like a lot of other countries, we need to have no taxes on citizens. Canada is taxing almost 50% of the wage. We want one income to be able to support a household, so one of the parents, whether it's the mother or the father, can stay home and actually raise a family, and hopefully we can reverse that birth rate.
And also the ability of the government to say, well, we will take care of your children. We will ban social media because apparently you don't know how to parent, and we will parent not just your child, but also you by making you get a digital ID so we can track what you're doing on the internet. But now let's go back to your comments. Todd says, Tom being real, yes, and says, love the celebs that keep speaking truth to the masses, so important. And who was it? Rob Schneider also recently came out and supported, I don't remember if it was a baseball league that was kind of trying to, or what was it, hockey? Well, whatever. There was a league that was trying to force, as they do during Pride Month or season, to wear pins or wear some sort of rainbow something on their jerseys, and he came out to support any player that didn't want to do that. Todd says, Tom McDonald and Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, so many others. Yes. Todd says, how did you lose your button at LOL again? Because I have, in this little thing, I have different pages that I go to. So when I have to go to change to do the intros, I have to change the page and then find the button and then press the button.
We have a on Saturday we're gonna have our new set, but I got a different little switcher there, so we'll see how many mishaps go on.
A lot of mistakes.
Because she's almost memorized most of these buttons, but now I've made new buttons for the other set.
Todd says, this is how you usher in communism, get everyone talking about gender equality and DEI and this kind of BS, and get them distracted enough while you pass legislation and policies that actually greatly impact and give you more and more power and greatly impact the citizenry. Again, not a lot of people know that they want to reclassify maid deaths. Not a lot of people knew about all of these censorship bills they're trying to ram, and the ones that they have still in the back burner that they want to pass after these three that are already very worrying. And that's how they do it. Todd said.
That's how they do it.
What's a woman is the main issue in Canada is how you usher in communism, smoking mirrors, and by changing the definitions of things. I mean, again, that is in George Orwell's 1984. That is in the Communist Manifesto. How do people... Yeah, sorry.
Men aren't as easy to control and manipulate, and this is the thing. And if we can take away all taxes on citizens, and say a man and a woman and a family had the option where only one of them had to work, the majority of the time it would be the man working and the woman staying home. But that goes against everything this woke ideology wants to kind of preach. I'm not even against the man staying home if that's what the couple decides, but we need to set up a situation where only one of the individuals need to work in the family.
Because by breaking up the family and breaking up that internal mechanism of direction that gives to a person's life and of purpose that gives to a person's life, for all of them, for the whole family, they're better able to go after each individual, the child, the mother, the father.
Well, and a lot of
because
times
they're not together and fighting together against
a lot of times people will say, oh, well, that's just not possible in modern society. But it is, especially when you look at other countries that have done no taxes. And Alberta is in a position no taxes on citizens. And when we're at a 50% tax rate, when we're at a 50% tax rate and you no longer have to pay that tax rate, that's enough for one of the parents to stay home and maybe do a little side gig online or something like that.
And especially now with online, there are so many other opportunities and ways people can have a side gig or start a business or become entrepreneurial without the need of going to either a corporation or, more likely in Canada, and if you're a woman, to work for the government. Rage Against Machine says, I'm offended daily. They should feel like that too. Oh, they do, believe me, but it's self-imposed and fake. Todd says, meanwhile, everyone he meets with gets a different story. Liar. He's a banker. That's what bankers do. Do we remember what happened in Mary Poppins? Anybody? Todd says, would be hard to keep straight in your head. Yes. And
well, he's got three major masters right now, or three major people pulling on him or pushing on him. That's going to be the globalists, which are his real true masters within the European Union. Then you have Donald Trump, which he just plays good cop, bad cop with all the time. And then you have China. These are the three major forces.
Todd says Menzies the man. Thank God for Mr. Menzies speaking truth. Yes.
Yeah. And Menzies has been
and
great
Rebel
for a long
News.
time. Yeah.
Sean, hello, Sean, says they were worried about no one serving coffee at Tim Hortons if they opened the cricket tournament to spectators. Yep. Although Canada right now is winning in soccer, but they're not really winning as hosts or as Canadians themselves. We've seen the reactions of people that have to go to games in Canada versus people that have to go to games here in Mexico or in the U.S.
It was nice to watch the Japanese game the other day. Who was it against Sweden? I think it was against Sweden. Yeah, we were watching it in the restaurant. And when the Swedes were scoring the goal, the Swedes it looked like they were from every other country. The Japanese actually looked like they were from Japan. It ended up being a 2-2 game, surprisingly.
Sean says, women make over 60% of university attendees in the USA. I imagine it's higher in Canada and Western Europe. Yes, it is. And Sean says, I'm working on getting my MMWG 2SLGBTQQIIAA+. I'm getting better at this. I'm not happy about that certification, so I can get me some big California grant cash. Well, yeah, now in California, they're going to be asking you to be officially a gay or something like that. They want to make you officially gay.
Yeah, and they're still trying to push those reparation payments through. I think it was Oakland. Yeah.
Sean says he was going to pay the fines of San Francisco. Thank you. Giants players who put Bible verses on their Pride Progress caps. Thank you. That was the story I wanted. Rob Schneider. Exactly.
Oh, and I had grabbed something the other day for that, but we didn't have time to get to that story. But yeah.
I really like Rob Schneider, and I know I'm in the teeny tiny minority that likes the hot chick. But my friend and I, my best friend and I used to watch that movie on repeat. I still know all the lines.
And your trans movies, Nat.
But he used a clip from when they're having a sleepover, and then when he's a man, when it's Rob Schneider, and just to show the force that a man has against women and why men shouldn't be in women's sports. So it's funny.
Let's go into Alberta.
I've been trying to read this one from Philip Vespa. Philip Vespa says, Tom MacDonald can help spread the message of independence in the U.S. It can help Alberta put pressure on the federal government.
Absolutely. And if we do go to the second path, which is taking over the UCP, ousting Danielle Smith, and declaring unilateral independence after a non-binding referendum, we're going to need a lot of exposure in the U.S., which is the country we're going to need to recognize us.
Okay, but now let's go into Alberta and the world. And let's start with Yukon Strong saying, quote, it's not, quote unquote, racist to kick out folks who break the law or refuse to integrate. Immigration is a privilege, not a right. And a lot of people have forgotten about it.
And here's the problem. Like, there's massive pushback in the EU, even coming from the politicians, finally, in certain countries, and within the UN as well. The problem is the fundamental structure is so corrupted that they're saying, oh, yeah, we're getting rid of illegal immigrants now. The amount of the illegal immigrants they're getting rid of is so minute because they spread out the definition of what a legal immigrant is. They're incorporating most of what was an illegal immigrant into the legal bracket now, so it's almost impossible to get rid of them. But they want to feign like they're actually doing something, not only to the people, but to Donald Trump as well.
And again, this is kind of the very similar mechanism that we continue and we were talking about with the Conservatives in Canada, where they will publicize and post, oh yes, they're doing finally something about immigration and mass migration. No, they're actually just changing definitions and policies, all smoke and mirrors. But then it is a little upsetting to see a lot of people counting this as a big win, when in reality, it's just a change of definition that would allow them to continue to have the mechanism that they currently have regarding immigration.
Once they take down one mechanism, they're building 3 more to actually legalize immigrants over on the other flank, which people haven't noticed yet.
Yeah.
I believe that it was not according to the dignity of this House, especially the chanting of racist charged slogans.
I have never felt as unsafe in this parliament as after the voting about the return regulation.
I think this is a disgrace, and I think the European Parliament is better than that.
Mr.
So
Schipper.
maybe we can take this as
Mr. Schipper, this is not a point of order. Again,
by the plenary reforms that were implemented.
Mr. Schipper, use a point of order to lecture your colleagues when you are not doing a point of order. Is not the best way to send a message. Thank you very much.
I believe that it was not according.
Yeah, and the changes there, the people want the change. There's even starting a growing number of politicians that are willing to actually speak up for the people now. But the rot is within the infrastructure, within the judiciary, within the actual core group of politicians that aren't willing to change. They want the replacement vote so they can continue on with their progressive globalist policies.
Mm-hmm.
They know citizens of these countries, if they were actually given a choice, wouldn't vote for a lot of these policies.
And again, if they're able to make most of the people that they were going to send back, well, now they're legal immigrants and now they're even citizens, well, now the numbers that are going to be sent back will be much lower, but they can quell that side that is asking for something to actually be done.
And we also covered this month, on the 12th of this month was when the
We
EU
just covered that.
Was when the EU took away the sovereignty from individual nations when it comes to their decisions on immigration. And they built massive amounts. We're talking thousands of intake facilities for what they're going to call legal immigrants now. They're willing to get rid of the illegal ones now because they've opened up the back door and opened up the floodgates to what's legal immigration, because the EU now controls immigration policies for most nations within the EU. They've lost their sovereignty.
But so you wouldn't hear that much about that story, about them changing where the sovereignty lies regarding mass immigration. Then they give you this story and then make all the conservatives say, oh, but look, now they're doing something. Now they're going to send them back. No, they're going to send back a tiny minority while legalizing and allowing entry for more people now under the guise of an easier legal path to at least live there and citizenship. Ollie London says UK Technology Secretary threatens to put quote-unquote restrictions on VPNs to enforce ban on under 16s using social media. Great.
I said yesterday to MPs I'll come back in July with a further statement around VPNs, but also additional measures that we want to look at, further restrictions.
And again, they're bringing the same kind of policies Canada's bringing in. But what she's saying here, she's saying this is the first pass. This is the first level of regulation. Then we're going to go after VPNs and the other things she's naming there. They have multiple layers and mechanisms they want to build on this first layer. This is only the beginning. If you allow them to get these first censorship bills in, they can just build mechanism after mechanism on top of it, and your freedoms are going to disappear overnight.
On AI chatbots that parents have found very worrying, more about overnight curfews or breaks in doom scrolling for 16 and 17-year-olds. So yesterday's announcement was the first of the measures, and the reason that we have done that is the sooner we make a decision on the main question of the ban, the sooner we can get it through Parliament and the sooner it will come into practice, because many families are desperate for this to happen. And I listened particularly to bereaved families who said every week, every month you delay this, more.
And we know this is untrue. Why do we know this is untrue? The same reason we know mass migration is an untrue statement, because they never put it to a vote. They'll never put the censorship to a vote. They'll never let the people decide. If she's getting so many calls from so many people, put it to a vote. You won't. There's certain things they're not willing to compromise on. They need this digital ID for every other digital mechanism to stack on top of that, whether it's digital currency or social credit score. They're not going to back down on this one, and they're not going to back down, so they're not going to put it to a vote, just like they needed mass immigration to bring a new voting demographic in so they can brainwash them and put in progressive policies.
Further progressive policies.
Children are put at risk, and I took that very seriously.
I've just had a message in the last few minutes from a bereaved mum who's appeared on this programme several times over the last couple of years, who has been campaigning and welcomes broadly what you've said, but is really frustrated that there aren't more answers on VPNs, on Face ID. And
it's up to those parents to parent. And you've also taken away even their way or their ability to even think that they can parent, because you've told them, no, it's up to us. We have to do it. You don't worry. You don't parent your children. You go work and get busy and don't even pay attention to your children, when it is those parents' responsibility, but also right to parent their own children.
We need more parental rights, less government rights, less government censorship.
But also more parental responsibility. It's your responsibility to parent your own child.
But in order to do that, this is another reason why we need no taxes on citizens. So one of the parents can afford to stay home so they can actually parent their child, and we can get the government out of the business of parenting our children.
Feeds into this criticism from Ian Russell, doesn't it, at the weekend, that this whole thing has been rushed?
Before we made this announcement, people said we were taking too long and we were too slow. Some people are now saying that this is rushed. I think it was the right thing to do, to have the consultation, to hear different views, including from Ian Russell and Molly Rose Foundation, and I take those concerns very, very seriously.
The consultation, I wonder if they consulted the First Nations there. We can leave it.
They are. The native people of Britain aren't really happy with all the new people that are coming in and conquering their towns. But speaking of, actually, from
Oh, and I do have an update on this story. I did not grab the clip, but I have the conclusion of the story after.
Says, quote, Europeans and American patriots, tomorrow the courts of my country, France, may decide to send me to prison for daring to say on television that, quote, the main danger to women in France is Black, African, and Arab immigrant men. Meanwhile, my own attacker, a Tunisian migrant, is still at large. Because let's go after the people that say things, not the ones that actually do them.
Hello, dear European and American patriots. I need your help. Tomorrow, I may be sentenced to unsuspended prison for daring to say on French TV that the main danger to women in France comes from Black, African, and Arab immigrant men, even though I was defending a woman who was herself raped by a Central African man subject to an OQTF order in the courtyard of her Paris apartment building. Having myself survived an attempted rape by a Tunisian migrant 4 years ago, I could not remain silent. But for having spoken these words on a television set, the prosecutor has sought a prison sentence against me. She dismissed our two stories as insignificant incidents which did not excuse my hate speech. Yet, all I did was describe a reality that most French people are afraid to speak about, precisely because the justice system is capable of convicting them for describing what they see with their own eyes and experience firsthand. This is the repression faced by people in France who speak the truth out loud. But thanks to you, I have hope ahead of the verdict, which will be handed down tomorrow. Just yesterday, I was still hesitating to publish my story, thinking nobody would notice, and it has now spread beyond our borders. And thanks to this media pressure, the justice system may back down before trying to send me to prison instead of our attackers. Please share this message. We are no longer afraid.
Okay, and leave it there. And it wasn't a complete victory, but the conclusion of this story did come up today. She went to court. It went viral, and it put a lot of pressure on the court system. The eyes of the world were kind of on that case.
Because it's insane.
So it was good that she did speak out. But if the eyes of the world weren't on that case, it would have been a much harder sentence. She was ultimately found guilty, but given a $1,000 fine, basically, which is still absolutely ridiculous, because if she speaks up again in the future, they're going to say she has a previous conviction, this and that. She's not guilty of anything. The French government is the one that's guilty of repressing speech and adding to these grape gangs and try to cover up what's going on here.
But also the Tunisian man that raped her is guilty of something, and yet she says that they're not actually looking at that. They don't really care about that much. And of the other girl that she was talking about as well. Again, it's insane that these governments continue to want to protect the men that do the disgusting things and that they don't want to admit are from a very specific region in a very specific part of the world with very specific values.
The government ultimately has something big to gain from covering this up, and they're looking to move in a new voter bloc because they won't be able to maintain power otherwise.
Yeah, this voter bloc that does disgusting things like this.
The citizens of these countries want change. That's why they're turning towards conservatism now. They want migration out. They want lower taxes. They want to be able to have a future. They want one family member to be able to stay home to raise their own children. And that's not what these progressive governments want. What they want is to push more progressive globalist policies. And the only way for them to do that is to replace the voters they currently have in their own country.
But I will also say they want a specific migration out. They want a specific subset of the mass migration, the majority that is coming in currently. That's who they want out. And yet that's who they're letting in even further and now legalizing in a faster manner.
All right, let's go into a comment.
Zia Yusuf says, quote, the BBC have been caught red-handed. What did they do now? Because they've been caught red-handed quite a few times.
The BBC have been caught red-handed. Do you remember when they planted illegal migrants in the audience of Question Time to ambush me and ask me whether a reform government would deport them?
The reform policy is to deport all illegal immigrants in the UK within 5 years. So that would be, I mean, these are real people. That would be someone like you.
If you're in this country illegally, you will be deported back to the country from which you came. Well, it turns out not only were those illegal migrants planted in the audience, they were literally coached on what to say by an open borders charity. This is according to the Telegraph in astonishing reports today. And the chief executive of this open borders charity also happened to be in the audience of that Question Time and just happened to have been randomly selected, of course, by Fiona Bruce to ask another question in which the British people were lectured to. Remember how insane this was when men who broke into the country illegally were given a national platform on the state broadcaster, remember, funded by you, to lecture you about the merits of having a secure border. And in fact, one of them, and I really couldn't believe this, he started reading from his phone, which was a bit of a telltale sign at the time that he was being told what to say and fed his lines. He started talking about how Britain shouldn't leave the ECHR and even started talking about the Northern Ireland Protocol. I didn't realise that men who broke into the country from Iran just a short while ago happened to be experts in British constitutional law. Now we know why. They had been planted there and coached on what to say, fed their lines by this open borders charity. The BBC knew about this and they were there for one reason and one reason
And
only.
we actually covered that story originally, and the original take that we had was, why is everybody reading these questions off the phone if they're randomly selected to the audience? And I guess now we know why. A few months later, it all comes out.
And again, very similar to what was happening with that First Nation reporting story documentary Lie that the CBC tried to do as well, where they duped Professor Frances Widdowson, but also, I forgot her name now.
Well, let's
Whatever you
continue
like her, into dupe them into basically doing similar things. And again, the media is getting desperate because they're not being as able to continue to construct their lies because the people are getting fed up. I mean, we're seeing what's happening in the UK and in Northern Ireland and in Ireland as well. But now let's go back to your comments. Hold on, where are we? Sean says, I love Deuce Bigelow too. Great movie. And Todd says, love me some Rob Mayo Gigolo.
I was never a big Rob Schneider fan, but I'm a big fan when he comes out and talks politically, and he goes on Glenn Beck. He goes on Glenn Beck a lot. Absolutely fantastic takes. Not a big fan of his movies, but yeah.
Sean says, I had to learn the Portuguese breakfast. Todd says, what? Lol, okay, don't remember that, but sounds frisky. Hold on. Oh, now they're talking to each other. Yeah, let me find where the comments are. Okay, here. Sean says, well, this strikes me about as knowledgeable about technology as a Catholic priest about being an OBGYN doctor. Pathetic. And again, I mean, they just wanted to say, oh, but we wanted to do it fast, but now they're complaining that we're not doing it harsh enough. We're not going against the VPN. So now maybe we should look into that as well, because the parents, the bereaved
you don't
parents,
have to worry about going fast enough or slow enough if you just put it to a vote. You're not putting the big issues to votes, and that's the thing. And you're not even offering a party up that's willing to not go down the path of censorship.
Rage Against Machine says, bloody liars pushing their communism. As always, Todd says she looks communist to me. She looks weird to me. Sean says, oh no, hold on. Sean said, they're talking to each other. Todd says, if they want me to leave to the Dakotas, I sure will. No problem. Just don't make me pay $500,000, please. And Sean says, real people with real homes they need to get back to. And Sean says, North Dakota is near where my family... Okay, now they're just talking to each other. Hold on. Now let me go to the rest of the comments, if I can find them, because we do have quite a few. Austin Westwood says, I hope Trump sets the record straight. With Carney? Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. And he actually blew it up at the G7. He's really pushing back hard. They don't know which way to go. Even Mark Carney in his speeches is saying the old global order is done. We're having to retool. Trump's sending them for a loop. They're hoping they can get a Gavin Newsom in, because if it's followed up by a JD Vance after Trump, it's going to be another hard push that will absolutely crush any plans that they had.
Saltis Maximus says, David Menzies, LOL, the most persecuted and arrested reporter in Canada because he does his job. And says Austin Westwood says David is a trooper.
Yeah.
Yes. Saltius says maybe players are on terrorist watch lists. Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened in Toronto when Olivia Chow wanted to let in that referee from, I don't even remember where he was
on
from.
a terrorist watch list.
Yes.
And then David Eby backed her up, saying we trying to push back against Trump and demonize Trump because you have a referee on a terrorist watch list that you don't want into the country.
Exactly. So we know where the values of, at least those in politics in Canada, lie. Harmony says the elites like to hire women, as I believe they are much more willing to be manipulated. They're much more likely to be manipulated because, again, women usually look at things through the lens of safety and security and protection. And value, not that they don't value freedom as much, but they value it in a different way. And if they don't have that safety and security, then there's the next step to freedom isn't there. Instead, for men, that's the first step.
But if it was just based upon that, it wouldn't happen. There's actually funding mechanisms and a lot of other things that have been instituted. For instance, we used to work for the Teamsters Union for the film industry in Vancouver, and you have DEI policies that 50% of your workforce have to be of a certain race or of a certain gender and things like
women,
of certain things like that. Otherwise, the contract would automatically be canceled.
Yeah.
So
Saltis Maximus says, how many women are doing 3 jobs to survive? Well, that too. I mean, and those statistics, how many of those are just the same woman working 3 different jobs? But still insane. Harmony says, for 60 years, even women who wish to look smart and stylish, the salons don't do it because salon schools seem to be controlled by the elites, making everybody ugly. Again, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, have you walked outside and seen what young women look like today?
Yeah.
Especially the woke ones. Tall Talk says the service sector are mainly second-tier jobs. They don't exist without the first-tier production jobs that generate the income that pays for them, which usually
That's absolutely correct. The thing is, a lot of these service jobs are paying more than the actual jobs that make society run. You don't have these service jobs without the core manufacturing jobs, the natural resources jobs, the jobs that make things tick. I know I worked with quite a few waitresses that were making more because they worked at high-end restaurants than doctors and lawyers ever did. They refused to go back to school. When they first got the job, it was to go back to school, to get education and do something. They're like, I'm never leaving this job. I didn't know it was going to pay over $100,000 a year.
Saltis Maximus says, Epoch News reported about a crackdown at a native illegal cigarette factory full of foreign nationals, probably making slave wages.
Yeah.
And again, look at the location and why we don't see much reporting as well about it. Hold on. Prin of Alberta says Alaska gives $3,000 annual dividend check to each person. A family of 4 would get an extra $12,000 a year, which helps the parents stay home and help their children.
Absolutely, but they said Alaska?
Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska's extreme. $12,000 doesn't do much in Alaska. The amount of food and everything else, anytime you want anything up there, you're going to pay for it because it has to be transported up there. Even in northern Canada, things cost a lot. I worked at a lot of camp jobs and went to a lot of little remote cities while I was waiting for pickup and stuff, and man, things cost a lot when they're remote and up north.
But Print of Alberta says a new Alberta Republic could also adopt this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, could also adopt not having taxes on their citizens.
No taxes on
giving them the opportunity.
No taxes on citizens is what the federal government doesn't want us talking about. And I've been looking into it heavy. There are dozens of countries around the world that have no taxes on citizens. Half of them are natural resource economies. The other half are usually banking economies or subsidiaries of other countries like the United States or the United Kingdom. There's plenty of examples of this, and because there's such a high tax rate, which is 50% from the Canadian government, if you don't have to pay that 50%, problem solved. One parent per household, the other one can stay home and now raise a family. Now, if the original tax rate was only 15 or 20%, getting rid of taxes wouldn't do much. You would still probably have both parents having to work. But when you're at a 50% tax rate, now one parent can stay home.
The impact is really felt.
The impact is huge.
Celsius Maximus says, and I do agree with you on this, says perhaps the crackdown on VPNs was one of the main goals all along.
They knew that right off the bat. They already have this thing mapped out. And there's a lot of reasons they need to bring in this censorship. But one of the big reasons is they need a digital ID for everybody.
Mm-hmm. That too. Sergeant Maximus says they turn a blind eye because it hurts their ideology, talking about mass migration.
Yeah, I've also been looking into a lot of documents, and under the Biden administration, they didn't have to get the control mechanisms over the American companies as much. Now they need them. And that's why they're trying to bring international regulation to American companies who normally would uphold to the ideal of free speech, but now have to uphold to the legal ideal of Canada, the UK, and every other country that wants to censor them.
But now we're heading over to, oh no, it crashed. But now we're heading over to RUMBLE. Please follow us there. There's a 30-second, I'm trying to see if we're still on live. There's a 30-second wait screen before we get there. If you haven't still yet subscribed, please do so. It really does help us out a lot. And thank you so much to Steven Jensen for the super chats. We will see you in 30 seconds over on RUMBLE. We do still have quite a few stories to see there.